In this village, winter fog is a physical weight. On a bitterly cold night, the Chop Hall, the village square, becomes the only sanctuary. People huddle around the campfire because the heat offers more than warmth. It provides the psychological safety of a shared light. But tonight, the fire feels small against the dark, paralyzed with dread. The tension breaks when a figure emerges from the fog. It's Tharampal Kaka, the village storyteller. He is uncharacteristically late and walks straight to the flames without a word. When he finally speaks, his tone suggests this isn't a performance. He has come to deliver a warning. This diagram maps the erosion of reason. It starts with environmental discomfort, like freezing wind or heavy rain. That physical pain triggers an overwhelming desire for immediate relief, which creates a direct path to susceptibility. When your body is in pain, your brain stops vetting the source of your rescue. The horror of this encounter begins long before a monster appears. It starts with a person so exhausted and cold that they are willing to compromise their own logic just to feel safe again. We go back to when Kaka was 27 years old. He was returning from a village feast, traveling alone as the night grew deep and the air turned heavy. Then the storm broke. He was caught in a violent downpour that felt less like rain and more like a physical assault. While a crowd might find safety under a shared roof, Kaka was miles from any village, isolated and entirely exposed. The rain behaved erratically. It would stop completely for a single quiet minute, only to crash down again with twice the force. These constant, punishing shifts began to wear away at his ability to make rational decisions. The road offered no refuge. There were no barns, no sturdy trees, and no nearby homes. The landscape was systematically removing his options, leaving him with a single, desperate need for shelter. Extreme physical exposure creates a dangerous kind of tunnel vision. When you are battered by the elements, your focus narrows entirely. You stop calculating long-term risks and focus only on the fastest possible escape. Through the rain, the only light on the road came from a small, rustic tea stall. It was a fragile structure, but it offered a roof and a moment of stillness. As he caught his breath, an old woman stepped out of the dark, standing beside him. She said nothing at first, simply staring with a gaze that felt heavy and unblinking. She spoke of her frail legs and her fear of the mud. She pleaded to walk with him, using her perceived vulnerability to bypass his suspicion. This schematic map shows the choice she presented. She claimed the long red route over the main bridge was flooded and impassable, and pointed instead to a direct green path, a shortcut cutting straight through the heavy timber of the forest. Normally, Kaka would have wondered why a frail woman traveled alone at midnight, but he was freezing, and the promise of a shortcut outweighed the strangeness of the situation. He followed her into the trees. A deadly trap rarely looks like a cage. Most of the time, it looks like a convenient solution to an immediate problem. The moment they left the road, the forest closed in. The trees grew so thick that the darkness felt solid, pressing against them from every side. The logic of the woods began to unravel. Animal cries shrieked from the distance, yet they sounded as though the creatures were breathing directly down his neck. The geometry of the sound didn't match the environment. The silence was even worse. Despite walking over thick mud and rotting leaves, the old woman beside him didn't make a single sound. Her feet left no audible impact on the ground. Kaka's heart was pounding, but his survival instinct had already committed to this path. Even as his senses screamed that something was wrong, his mind stayed locked onto the idea that this was his only way home. Then, a massive crack of lightning ripped through the canopy. The world turned a harsh, blinding white for a single second. In that flash, the illusion shattered. The frail woman was gone. In her place stood a mutilated figure with glowing, blood-red eyes and a body that appeared torn by some great force. As he looked down, a long, crouching shadow slithered aggressively across the path, moving with a speed that no human or animal could mimic. When convenience is chosen over intuition, the realization of danger always arrives too late. By the time the lightning struck, Kaka was already standing in the heart of the trap. Kaka ran until his lungs burned, finally reaching a neighboring village where he collapsed and recounted his nightmare to the locals who found him. The villagers recognized the story immediately. Years earlier, during a similar storm, a massive tree had snapped and crushed an old woman to death on that exact forest path. She had been trapped in the mud until she died. That encounter changed the way Kaka moved through the world for the next 50 years. From that night on, every shortcut was a gamble he refused to take, no matter how tired he was. When you are isolated and desperate, the easiest path is often the most dangerous. In the end, the difficult, known road is the only one that actually leads you home.